I'm Lloyd Evans, and you're watching the John Cedars channel, not from the bunker, but as you can see, we're doing this in the car, on our way to the coast for a holiday. Isn't that right, Deanna?
That's right. This sounds a little bit too official.
You very much enjoy being on camera, don't you, Deanna?
Hell no.
But, in all seriousness, just before, or yesterday in fact, when I was getting ready for this trip to the coast, someone posted on Twitter about a new Watchtower article, or is it a questions from readers? It is, isn't it?
Questions from readers, yeah.
And it's in the December 2019 Watchtower article, or Watchtower magazine. And it's very interesting because it seems that something that happened at the Australian Royal Commission back in 2015 has influenced, shall we say, a questions from readers. Many of you who followed the Australian Royal Commission, or who were interested in some of the things that particularly Geoffrey Jackson said, will be familiar with this particular exchange between Angus Stewart and Geoffrey Jackson, in which Angus Stewart argues very capably, in my opinion, that Deuteronomy 22 has a... We're in the dark now, aren't we? And there's no light. Can you see me now, viewers? No? Probably not. Well, maybe you can see me now. Angus Stewart. So anyway, Angus Stewart argues very capably that Deuteronomy 22 could provide a loophole whereby you don't have to apply the two-witness rule in cases of sexual assault, which is what Jehovah's Witnesses currently do when it comes to child sex abuse. So here's a clip from the Australian Royal Commission.
And then the next example is the one I'm particularly interested in. If, however, the man happened to meet the engaged girl in the field, and the man overpowered her and lay down with her, and the man who lay down with her is to die by himself, and you must do nothing to the girl. The girl has not committed a sin deserving of death. This case is the same as when a man attacks his fellow man and murders him, for he happened to meet her in the field, and the engaged girl screamed, but there was no one to rescue her. So the point of this last example is that there's no second witness, is there? Because the woman's in the field, she screamed, but there was no one to rescue her. The present step is this, is that in that example you accept it's a case where there was no other witness beyond the woman herself.
There was no other witness except the woman herself, but added to that were the circumstances.
Yes, well, the circumstances were that she was raped in the field.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but they were circumstances.
And it was sufficient, there being only one witness, it was nevertheless sufficient for the conclusion that the man should be stoned to death.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Now, is it...
I think we're agreeing on the point.
Yes, is it not the case that had Jesus been asked about a case of sexual abuse, he may have referred back to this part of Deuteronomy and said that it's not required to have two witnesses?
I certainly would like to ask Jesus that, and I can't at the moment. I hope to in the future. But that's a hypothetical question, which if we had an answer, then we could support what you said.
So that was the exchange between Geoffrey Jackson and Angus Stewart. Again, Angus Stewart gave a brilliant argument, basically letting the governing body off the hook if they wanted, and giving them a reason to not apply the two-witness rule to child sex abuse. At the time, Geoffrey Jackson says, well, if only Jesus were here, we'd be able to ask him. 2 weeks later, Geoffrey Jackson sent in a written argument refuting Angus Stewart's suggestion basically with the logic that we're about to look at now, Deanna. So are you able to read, well, first of all, could you read the actual Bible verse?
Right.
Because I think it's interesting to be familiar with the Bible verse and what it says, because the Bible verse has a few problems which are worth talking about. So this is Deuteronomy 22 verses 22 to 30.
By the way, English is my second language, so if I read something wrong, please excuse me. If a man is found lying down with a woman who is the wife of another man, both of them must die together, the man who lay down with the woman as well as the woman. So you must remove what is bad out of Israel.
So just to cut in there, it sounds like here a couple are being executed for committing adultery, which, you know, you could argue is a rather draconian sentence for adultery, but when you actually read that in context with the next verse, it sounds like the man and the engaged woman, the man rapes the engaged woman when you read it in context with the next verse. So
if the
virgin is engaged to a man, and another man happens to meet her in the city and lies down with her, you should bring them both out to the gate of that city and stone them to death, the girl because she did not scream in the city, and the man because he humiliated the wife of his fellow man. So you must remove what is evil from your midst.
So this is quite disturbing. We're in the territory of how to deal with rape, because they're here saying, well, you should kill both of them because this happened in a city, and if this man raped this girl, she should have screamed. And there are any number of reasons, Deanna, why you wouldn't scream when you're being raped, especially if someone was threatening you.
Well, no, even, you know, if they weren't saying specifically, oh, don't scream. If you were attacked and, for example, he's choking you or has a knife on you or a weapon, or just the fact that somebody assaulted you, for some people, fear makes them paralyzed, and they are almost having like out-of-body experience where they can't do anything. They're in this situation and they can't do anything to get out of it, so they just zone out. It's not that they're saying yes, I want to be raped. It's just they physically cannot do anything. Some people react differently to fear, and it's not to us to judge.
So this is why the actual verse itself is kind of problematic. It kind of highlights the fact that if you're going to base everything on the Bible, you're going to run into problems, because the Bible was written from a very overly simplistic, you could say male-oriented viewpoint, so that if you're raped, you have to scream, even if you're being threatened. If someone says, if you scream, I'll kill you. So can you read on to the next?
Yeah. If,
However, the man happened to meet the engaged girl in the field, and the man overpowered her and lay down with her. The man who lay down with her is to die by himself, and you must do nothing to the girl. The girl has not committed a sin deserving of death. This case is the same as when a man attacks his fellow man and murders him. For he happened to meet her in the field, and the engaged girl screamed, but there was no one to rescue her.
So this is the verse that Angus Stewart uses very cleverly, in my opinion. And this is the verse, by the way, that also kind of basically tells us that we're talking about rape in each of these situations. But each of the situations is very clearly a hypothetical situation. And in this hypothetical situation, bear in mind that we've established that everything it's all about screaming if you're raped. So if someone rapes you, you have to scream, otherwise, according to the Bible writers and according to Watchtower, you are consenting. So if you are raped in a field, clearly it doesn't matter whether you scream or not, because no one's going to hear you. So that's what this hypothetical situation is talking about. It's talking about a situation where someone is raped in a field, no one can come to the girl's rescue. So it's not, according to the writers here, it's therefore not the girl's fault, even though that's a ridiculous thing to even say when we're talking about rape. But that's what the Bible writers mean. And could you read to the end there from 28 to 30?
If a man happens to meet a virgin girl who is not engaged, and he seizes her and lies down with her, and they are discovered, the man who lay down with her must give the girl's father 50 silver shekels, and she will become his wife. Because he humiliated her, he will not be allowed to divorce her as long as he lives. No man should take his father's wife, so that he may not dishonor his father.
So again, I just wanted you to read that to highlight how problematic the Bible is on its own terms, because there we have a man raping a virgin, and the virgin is treated like property, like chattel. So nothing matters about compensating the girl in any way, or
whether she wants to be married.
Yeah, her punishment, the whole situation gets made even worse, because rather than him being punished properly for raping her, she's punished as well, because she's got to be married to the guy and stuck with him for the rest. So it's full of problems. Sorry, I've gone dark again. And I must just say as well, oh, here we are back in the light tunnel, sorry about that, guys. And I must just point out that we have Julia in the back and she's awake. Jessica's asleep.
Yeah.
So Julia may have a few things to say on this video as well. But yeah, I wanted to read those just to highlight the fact that the Bible itself is problematic in this area and has all sorts of issues. But now, in that context, it's probably worthwhile reading the questions from readers, which again is like a boiled down version of the statement that Geoffrey Jackson sent in to the Australian Royal Commission.
Really interested to see what they say, because I haven't read it.
You've not read it yet?
No.
The Bible says that at least 2 witnesses are needed to establish a matter. But under the law, if a man raped an engaged girl in the field and she screamed, she was innocent of adultery, and he was not. Given that others did not witness the rape, why was she innocent while he was guilty? The account at Deuteronomy 22, 25 through 27 is not primarily about proving the man's guilt, because that was acknowledged. This law focused on establishing the woman's innocence. Note the context. The preceding verses speak of a man who had sex with an engaged woman in the city. In doing that, he was guilty of adultery, since the engaged woman was viewed as married. What about the woman? She did not scream in the city. If she had done so, others would certainly have heard her and would have defended her. But she did not scream. Thus, she was sharing in the adultery, so both were judged guilty. Deuteronomy 22, verses 23 and 24. The law next outlined a different situation. If, however, the man happened to meet the engaged girl in the field, and the man overpowered her and lay down with her, the man who lay down with her is to die by himself, and you must do nothing to the girl. The girl has not committed a sin deserving of death. This case is the same as when a man attacks his fellow man and murders him, for he happened to meet her in the field, and the engaged girl screamed, but there was no one to rescue her. Deuteronomy 22, 25 through 27. In that case, the woman was given the benefit of the doubt. In what sense? It was assumed that she screamed, but there was no one to rescue her. So she was not committing adultery. The man, however, was guilty of rape and adultery, because he overpowered her and lay down with her, the engaged woman. Hence, even though this law focused on the woman's innocence, the account rightly described the man as guilty of rape and adultery. We can be confident that the judges would investigate the matter thoroughly and render a decision in line with the standard that God had set out plainly and repeatedly.
Does that make sense to you?
No.
So, as far as I can tell, there's three issues here. First of all, this Questions from Readers perpetuates the myth that if you are raped, you should scream, and if you don't scream, you are consenting, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because it actually repeats that idea. It can't, the writers, because they're probably men, and probably don't know anything about sexual assault or anything like that, just assume that if you are raped and you don't scream, therefore you are consenting, when it's clearly not as simple and straightforward as that. But we're in the kind of twisted black and white world of Watchtower. I'm going to turn these lights on because we're coming into another tunnel. Second thing is, they say wrongly, oh, these verses were all about establishing the girl's guilt. When you read the verses in context, quite clearly, it's talking about the guilt of both of them, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's talking about the guilt of the man. What should happen to the man? What should happen to the woman?
Yeah.
If the man rapes a virgin, he has to pay this much money, and this is how so it's not.
Yeah, if they're found together, you should stone them both.
Indeed. So the writers of this Questions from Readers are quite simply lying when they say, oh, well, it was all focused on the girl. No, it was focused on it's a series of hypothetical situations saying, what guilt do we attach to the rapist, and what guilt do we attach to the victim? So that's wrong as well. And finally, I can't believe that the organisation that I followed for 23 years as a baptised witness is capable of that sort of playground witnessing. Here is what they're saying. Right, well, it says here in the hypothetical situation that the man raped the girl in the field, so we know that the man raped the girl, so therefore the man is guilty. That's what they're saying. They don't seem to understand what a hypothetical situation is. It would be a bit like me talking to a friend and saying, right, Jim, what would you do if I came to your house at night while you were asleep and spray painted the word moron on your front door? What would you do? And it would be like Jim saying, I'm going to come and smash your face in. And I'd be like, no, Jim, you don't understand. You're asleep. You're asleep, so you don't know that I've spray painted the word moron on. I'd smash your face in. But that's kind of the equivalent of what Watchtower's doing here. They're saying, well, we know that the guy was guilty because that's what it says in the hypothetical. Well, you don't get the point then, do you?
Yeah, in hypothetical, the only way he could be punished for his crime is if the girl said, he raped me, and then he was punished because there was no witnesses.
There were no witnesses.
So how would they know to punish him other than girl saying, he raped me?
That's the whole point of the scenario. There were no witnesses. A rape happened. The only person who was there to attest to the rape was the victim. You've got to take her word for it.
And then, why is that not applied to children?
Exactly. But I really shudder to think that, and this, by the way, was the reasoning that Geoffrey Jackson came up with. His initial reaction, as we saw, was, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could ask Jesus? And then 2 weeks later, Eureka! Jesus got back to us, and here's the answer. And the answer is, well, we know from the hypothetical scenario that it was the guy's fault, so therefore everything's cool. Mystery solved.
If any Jehovah's Witnesses are watching this, I would urge them to listen to that testimony.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have believed that he was acting that way if I haven't seen it for myself.
Yeah.
And it's, on public, it's available to public. It's not set up by.
We've just seen it. I've just shown it on the video.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, power of editing. It's not set up by apostates or anything. This was a situation he found himself by, being questioned, and the way he responded really highlights the hypocrisy.
This is the wisdom of the faithful and discreet slave, and frankly, it's so silly and so juvenile. It's almost not worth talking about. It's not even really worth. There's nothing to rebut because it's just stupid. It's a non-argument to say mystery solved. It says it was the guy.
And apparently those are the men who have been anointed by Holy Spirit. The kind of men that are supposed to lead us all, that have higher wisdom than all of us. It's just something to ponder on.
So I hope you have enjoyed us going over that. Sorry about the unorthodox filming environment. I'd be interested to see what this looks like while I'm editing. But
I'm kind of hoping that you won't use it.
No, I'm going to be using it.
Make another video.
No, I'm going to use it. It was good. You did very well. So viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the John Cedars channel for more such videos. And as always,
thank you for watching.